This is the all-new ROG Zephyrus S GX701. It's an ultra-slim gaming laptop that we've scaled up to 17 inches without losing any of the slimness. So it actually measures only 18.7 millimeters thin, but we've got a full 17-inch panel with slim bezels. The display refreshes at up to 144 Hertz, has a super fast 3 millisecond response time that keeps the picture nice and crisp, especially for fast-paced games like first-person shooters. The panel is actually Pantone validated as well. We noticed that a lot of people buy these systems are not just gamers, but they're also content creators, they're designers, they want something with accurate colors that they can use for work. So we do have a Pantone validated display option without losing the slim bezels, without losing the fast response time or the high refresh rate. This also works with G-Sync, so the refresh rate of the display will synchronize with the frame rate of the GPU to give you really smooth motion with no tearing. Now, one of the problems with G-Sync is that it doesn't work with NVIDIA's Optimus technology. Optimus shuts down the GPU completely when it's not being used to save power, but that conflicts with G-Sync, so we developed our own GPU switch that's only available in ROG laptops. What this allows you to do is switch between G-Sync mode for gaming and then Optimus mode if you want better battery life. So it gives you the best of both worlds, basically. So this system, despite being super thin, is actually really powerful. A lot of that has to do with the cooling system. You'll notice here that the keyboard is moved forward slightly, so this gives us more room here to incorporate the cooling, and then it also keeps all the heat generating components in this upper region, which means they're far away from your hands, so you're not going to get any hot spots in the keyboard when you're playing games for long periods of time. The cooling system is similar to other Zephyrus systems that we've done in the past, so it has the active aerodynamic system, so when you open the lid, there's actually a vent in the bottom that opens up to increase airflow into the system. And that helps keep the components inside cool. So in this system we've got I'll just bring up the specs for you here. But we've got the latest 6-core Core i7 CPU. You can get it with up to 24 gigs of RAM and up to a terabyte of NVMe storage. Now the GPU in this system is a new GeForce RTX 2080 Max-Q. This will also be available with a 2070 and a 2060 config. Basically, we're giving you high-end performance in an ultra-slim system without compromising on anything. A couple of other upgrades that are worth covering here. One of them is the keyboard. We have per-key RGB lighting, which is the first time we've done this in a Zephyrus system before. We've also got this little volume roller on the side. Volume rollers are really popular in desktop keyboards. We put it on the left on the Strix Flare keyboard that we make, and it's been really popular, and we decided to integrate one here as well. You can actually click down on this to mute as you want as well. Now, battery life is really important in systems like this. We put a bigger battery in it. It's actually a 75 or 76 watt-hour unit that's 50% larger than the last generation. And we actually looked at how we power the system as well. Now, you need a lot of power and a fairly large power brick if you want to play games with powerful hardware like this. But a lot of people use these systems for things like email, word processing, web surfing. They're not gaming on them all the time. So we implemented Type-C charging support, which allows you to run the system on a little itty-bitty power adapter like this. You can get models up to 65 watts that it'll work with. Now, you can't play games and keep the battery charged in this configuration, but if you just want to do email or word processing, sort of basic tasks, this is all the power you need, which allows you to pack a lighter adapter when you need to travel, and then keep your more powerful adapter at home where you do your gaming. Now, this Type-C charging support uses the standard USB power delivery spec. That means it's also compatible with USB power packs. So if you're on the road, let's say, you're running out of battery on your laptop, you don't have a wall outlet anywhere nearby, but you still have a little bit of work you need to finish up, you can plug in a USB power pack and get a little bit of extra charge. How much depends on what you're going to be doing and how much capacity the power pack has, but you can get up to an hour of extra battery life with something like a Zen Power Pro. Now, one of the biggest challenges with doing a laptop like this with slim bezels is what you do with the webcam. Not a lot of good options here. If you put it on the bottom, you end up with a webcam that looks up your nose, and a lot of people don't want that. If you try to squeeze it into the top bezel here, you don't have a lot of space to work with, which means that you don't have a lot of freedom to do a good webcam. When we're doing research on a system like this, we found that most gamers who use their webcams are using it specifically for streaming. They care about two things. They want resolution, and they want performance or frame rate specifically. So we developed this external webcam here that is capable of capturing 1080p footage at 60 frames per second. It's actually, it detaches from the top, so it's very easy to clip onto the top of the system. But it's also very small, folds completely flat like this, about the size of a USB thumb drive. And the nice thing about this being detachable is you don't have to have it on the front of the laptop like this. If you want a different angle, let's say you're using this system to stream but not actually playing games on it, you want to move this somewhere else. This comes with a little stand that you put it in, so you can mount this wherever you want and just connect it over USB. So it's a lot more flexible than a webcam that is only in a fixed position. In terms of connectivity on this device, we've got Type-C ports with support for DisplayPort over Type-C. We've also got standard USB ports and then an HDMI 2.0 output as well. So you can connect multiple displays simultaneously if you want to power more of a desktop setup, or you can just use the display that comes with it. Now over here we have a couple of internal parts. This is actually a little volume roll right here. You can see how small it is to fit into a system like this. Now that doesn't seem very thick, but when you're putting it into a system that's 18.7 millimeters, you actually have to be really careful about making space for even small components like this. This is the cooling system here. A couple of the things to point out. One you'll notice here is we've got a heat spreader and heat pipe that goes not connected to the CPU or the GPU. This is actually for the power components. Helping keep them cool allows them to more efficiently feed the CPU and the GPU, and then also keeping the power components cooler, specifically under 80 degrees, does actually help with long-term longevity and stability. So if you look at this system, these fans are really, really thin, but they're actually quite powerful. So they got 83 blades each, and they've got this special anti-dust tunnel here, which you can just kind of see. And the last thing you want on a small fan like this is dust gathering on your heatsink fins, because that'll actually compromise your cooling performance over time, and that will compromise your actual system performance. So this anti-dust tunnel, what it does is it uses centrifugal force, and it actually catches dust as it spins around in the fan, and then ejects it for the system so that it doesn't clog up your heatsinks. Another thing that's really, really challenging is fitting everything onto a motherboard for a system like this. So this is actually the size of a motherboard. It's much smaller than a typical desktop motherboard, despite the fact that it integrates not just the CPU, but also the graphics chip. So there's not a lot of spare room here. That's why we actually solder 8 gigs of memory onto the motherboard, and then have the remaining up to 16 in an SO DIMM slot over there. There's not really a lot of space in an ultra slim system like this, especially when you want to put enough power in there to drive high-end components like a 6-core CPU and a top-of-the-line GPU. So one of the biggest challenges with ultra slim gaming laptops is getting enough airflow into them. There's not a lot of room for it. But you don't have to have a static system. We have our active aerodynamic system, so when you open the lid, it actually opens a vent in the bottom here, which allows significantly more airflow into the system. As part of the design, we also take airflow in from the top, and we're basically trying to get as much air in as we can to cool the components inside. If you look at the design here, we've got a nice brushed finish on the top. We've got contrasting brush lines in one direction, and then another direction, a nice ROG logo here. On the port side, we've got your standard power connector if you want to connect DC. This is also where you would connect the Type-C for Type-C charging. We've also got HDMI, a standard audio jack, and a Type-A port on this side. And then on the other side, we've got a couple more Type-A ports and then one more Type-C. This Type-C can't be used for fast charging, but it is available if you want to connect additional peripheral devices. So this is the Zephyrus S GX701. It's our way of going bigger but staying slimmer, and it's going to be available in the first quarter of this year.